I get a lot of comments and personal messages on how my Banshee stays looking the way that it looks, and a lot of it, to be honest with you, is just an illusion from the camera. It does have a lot of scuffs on it. You can't really see them. It is raining here out, so it kind of makes it hard, but I decided to make a video on how I clean and detail my Banshee. First thing I did was take off the seat because I am going to use a pressure washer on it. Pressure washer is the best way to get the thick mud and grease and stuff like that off that won't come off with just the pressure of a hose, and it's in spots that you can't get to with a wash rag or anything like that. So I take the seat off and then use some kind of degreaser. This time I'm using Purple Power, but there's a whole ton of them out there. All of them work just as well. Just make sure you don't get it on anything that's going to be sensitive to having the color change. Like, don't get it on your stickers or your plastic or anything like that. Just try to keep it around the engine and the exhaust and like the sprockets and the suspension parts and stuff like that, where it's not painted. It's either powder coated or it's clear coated over really well. Don't let this stuff sit on there too long because it can eat off the paint and the coating on the engine and the carbs and stuff like that. So just spray it on and let it sit there for about 5 or 10 minutes and then hose it off. I already rinsed down everything, knocked the major parts of dirt off, and then I'm gonna degrease it next with this, and then I'm gonna use the pressure washer there and use a fog pattern. You always want to use a fog pattern, never a straight stream on an ATV. It'll peel your stickers off and blow gaskets out and all that kind of stuff. So just apply the stuff liberally wherever there's grease. You can see there's black spots right there on the carb, and that's on both sides. That's because these exhaust clamps leak just a little tiny bit, and I plan on replacing those. But hose everything down where the grease and exhaust gets, and let that stuff soak in. Also, a really good spot to put the degreasers on the silencers. So spray a little bit on there, on the inside, on the outside. Try not to get any in the tailpipe. So before you stand the quad up, obviously you want to shut the fuel off, then put it in gear, and then lift it up. And then everything under here that I didn't show you, but you can see it's all still pretty dirty in there. Underneath the Nerf guards are really dirty. You can still see some dirt in some spots. But I just use the pressure washer just to knock down most of the dirt, and then I do all this by hand. In my opinion, the best soap that you can use for this job, it's cost effective, is Dawn dish soap. It works fantastic, and that's what I have hooked up on the pressure washer as well. Right there, I just put probably about 3 or 4 tablespoons in with that full 1 gallon jug, and then on low pressure mode it sucks it in through the hose there. So if you want to, you can use 2 different buckets, one for clean water and then one for rinse water, but I just used one because I pressure washed it beforehand and knocked most of the dirt off. So now I'm going to go ahead and wash it by hand. You always want to start at the top and work your way down. I'm going to flip it back on all fours to wash it by hand.
So there it is, all soaped up. I always wash it from the top to the bottom because the top is usually the cleanest, the bottom is usually the dirtiest. And then rinse everything off. It's important to get the inside of the wheels where your brakes are. It's important to get around your chain and sprockets, make sure all that's clean, and then your rear brake as well. It's also a good time to do an inspection on your lug nuts and your suspension bolts and your brake bolts and all that kind of stuff to make sure that they are all still tight in there. After I rinse off the quad from all the soap, next I use either some foamy engine cleaner or engine shine, depending on how dirty it is. The foamy engine cleaner works a little bit better because it expands after you spray it, so it gets into spots where you can't reach. So I'm going to spray it down with the foamy engine cleaner and then dry it and then spray it with the engine shine. You could also use tire foam. Tire foam works pretty much just as well, and it gives it that awesome look at the end. You could also use it on your exhaust if you want. So there it is with the foam on it. I'm gonna let that sit for a minute and then rinse it off and then put the shine on it. That's with the tire foam rinsed off and the shine applied. The shine you're supposed to leave on there for about 10 or 15 minutes and then rinse off, and it should look awesome after that. But use a generous amount. I don't do this every time I wash my ATV. I just do it when it gets really, really dirty, probably after 3 or 4 ride weekends or so. But it's good to do once in a while. It keeps all the bolts from getting corroded. It keeps everything free and loose so that if you need to remove it, you can. It keeps your plastic in better shape, like the rubber sleeves there that go in between the carb and the air box, and then the reed cover right there. It keeps all that stuff in much better shape. Your coils, it keeps them from cracking because the chemicals in the shine absorb in there and keep everything in like new condition. And it definitely works, because I've seen Banshees that are about the same age as mine in much, much worse shape, and I believe it's because of the products that you use that keeps it the way that it is. Those foam shine agents and stuff like that are really, really toxic, so I like to let the water run so that it doesn't kill the grass wherever it touches. You just got to dilute it quite a bit with the water. But it's just about ready to be rinsed off, and then it should look much better than it did before I washed it. And the very last thing that I wash on the quad is the chain, because it needs the most attention. It takes the most time. It's the longest process. I did a whole separate video on that, so I'm not going to include that in this, but I will include a link either in an annotation or in the description on how to do a chain cleaning. But that's probably the most important thing, other than making sure your radiator is clean of debris, is making sure that your chain is intact, because if that chain snaps, it's going through your case and it'll cost you a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money to fix it. That's assuming it doesn't fly off and hurt somebody or anything like that. So there's a finished product of what it looks like. It's got a little bit of shine to it. Everything's nice and clean. Obviously a couple scuffs there, but nothing I can do about that right now. If you're going to store the quad for any period of time, I'd recommend taking the plastic off and washing the inside of the plastic and washing all the components underneath. If it doesn't start after you wash it, that's probably just because you got the electronics wet. Let it drip dry for a little bit. If you want to, unplug the electronics, the connections, and spray them with some electrical cleaner, and that'll dry up all the water right away. If not, just let it sit for a couple hours and it'll probably fire right up.